Steele.
Coach, the defense really buckled down after the first possession, and Mario was talking about how in the first 3 games, other teams have had success on their first drive. What is it about that, and adjusting from that, because they really tightened up afterwards?
Well, it's not so much adjustment-wise. We've not had anything in the first 3 games, in the first 3 drives, really that we hadn't prepared for. Now, Southern Miss was a little bit different because they had been so much Wildcat almost exclusively, and they came out in 11 with a quarterback. But we had prepared for that, so it's not like we're seeing things that. I think the thing is just getting everybody settled down, and just the routine and the confidence that they know their job, they understand their job, settle down and just play the next play. Once we get through that, you can tell it on the sideline. So it's not anything that's catastrophic. It's not incurable. It's just we just got to work to it.
What are your biggest takeaways from the defensive secondary? It seemed like DJ Ivey had a great game, and James is doing James Williams things.
Right. Well, Coach Adai has really put an emphasis and done a really good job of we're a press team. We press a lot in coverage. And that's key because your feet have got to be, you got to move your feet correctly, and then you got to have offhand jam. You got to get your hands on them. And so we really made a lot of progress there. We were very tight in our coverage, which is good. And we were tight in our coverage without being too handsy, because if you get tight in your coverage and you start grabbing things, then you don't have a problem. And so we really put a point of emphasis on that. They did a good job, and I think it showed up in the game.
Coach, I know they've been rotating for each other mostly this year, but Corey Flagg and Caleb Johnson, do they have the skill set to play with each other? Do you feel like?
Yeah, they could. The problem is they play the same position. So,
right.
Max, and that's, you got, when you build a house, you got plumbers, you got painters, you got drywallers, and you don't want your drywaller doing plumbing.
So your positions are that different though?
Yes, they are. That'd be like tailback and quarterback. They're both backs. No, they're really not.
Coach, 3 games. Where do you think on the defense needs to see the most improvement going forward?
Everything. We will never come in, and our guys have bought into that. They understand that. They understand the things that, hey, this is what we did well, this is what we're doing well, this is what we've consistently done well, this is what we have to improve, these are the new things we have to improve, and they need us for the things they have to improve. And so it's just constant improvement, constant. You never arrive. It's something I learned a long time ago. Maybe when I first got into coaching, I thought, oh, yeah, you'll win the national championship and everything's perfect. But we watched that game and realized we won the national championship, and we still had mental errors. We still had guys out of position. It never, because no play's ever the same. They line up the same formation on the same route, but the guy's a little bit wider, a little bit tighter, or the tackle set's a little bit deeper. There's always something to improve. And it's a mindset that you understand that, you embrace that. So we've got things that we have to get better at tackling. We're tackling pretty well, but not good enough. And so we've got to get better at the coverage things we talked about and keep improving those. We've got to up front make sure that we're low, pad leverage, using hands, striking, staying in our gap. It just never changes. I wish it went away, and I wish one day I could come in here and stand here and say, you know what, we played a perfect game, but I don't think that's going to happen.
How'd you evaluate Leonard Taylor's performance on Saturday?
Well, Leonard keeps growing. He's a young guy. It's a little different schematically, and where the D-line was nothing wrong. There's different, Baskin Robbins make a lot of money selling different flavors, so you don't have to have one flavor. Not anybody being negative about anything. But they were more penetrate and attack front, where we're more play blocks. And so that's, when you're young, that's a process. And so he's making a lot of improvement on it. He makes a lot of big plays, but he'll be the first to tell you, because he's got an unbelievable ability. Sometimes Leonard makes some of those plays, and I'd say this if he was in here, it's like no, yes. Because he's just so talented. But when he's improving each week, and you can see it.
Coach, I was just say sometimes when a guy makes a mistake like Tyreek on the punt return, it doesn't affect the other part of the game. Can you just speak to maybe
more importantly, everybody else let go of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing for one guy to let go of it, but if it affects all 11, you know, that's part of the culture the coaches established here is next play culture. And that's not just a buzzword. You literally have to play the next play. And so he did a good job of that. It was communicated on the sideline. It was talked about it from us, from the other players. Hey, next play, next play, next play. And that's a buzzword for it. You know, my dad used to say a bad day doesn't indicate you're gonna have a bad life. You know, a bad play doesn't indicate you're gonna have a bad game. So you gotta go play the next play.
Coach, what do you make of the way that Daryl Jackson Jr. compliments Leonard Taylor, the way they play together?
Well, it's two large human beings in there, and you know that's it eats up space. And then when you eat up space with guys that are very talented, that have quick feet, they've got really good explosion, they're strong, then they're just not a refrigerator sitting in there. I mean, they've got they've got a motor and they can move. So that obviously that complements and helps the whole defense when you can force people to run the edges.
Coach, Middle Tennessee State, what's the biggest challenge for you defensively? And also, I know someone asked about DJ Ivey. He's a veteran now. He had a good game. Any specifics on him?
Right. Well, I'll start with DJ. DJ is number one, extremely coachable. Number two is he's a very intelligent young man from the football standpoint and academically too. But obviously, we're talking about football. You know, he's just a bright guy. And so he's got a lot of pride in his play, and he's really polished his technique. His technique is just improved. You know, it's one that practice is practice, and we have to work to that level to improve things and work hard on it. But then when you get in the game, it's a little bit different. It is, and so I think he's playing game speed more in the week now because he understands that, because he's going to have to play it in the game. So rather than just going through practice, he's learned to really practice on his own. While the play's going on in practice, he's playing it like a game play. He's playing his technique, his speed like a game. So if you're going against a scout team receiver who obviously may not be as fast as the guy or as quick as the guy you're going to play on Saturday, he didn't go out there and play to that level. He's practicing at a high level and it's showing up on Saturday. Middle Tennessee, Rick, the head coach there, Stockstill, and I are very, very close friends. I've known him a long time. Some people won't understand what I'm about to say here. I've not said it because of that, but the offense, the best for the older group in here is the Hal Mummy true offense of the, Kentucky, Valdosta State that became the Mike Leach air raid offense. It's a lot of four wides on the field, a lot, majority of the time. They throw the ball to set up the run rather than the other way around. They do run it more than they used to in that offense, but it's still not a lot. Their bubble screens, their now screens, their edge screens are really part of their running game. They get that ball out of their hand quick. They release the back a lot, so it's five on your D line. It's not, they don't keep tight ends in because they don't play with a tight end very often at all. They do a little bit more of keeping. They've got a bigger wide receiver they'll move in like a tight end, but he's not a tight end. So, protection-wise, we've got to affect the quarterback. That offense traditionally has been hard to get sacks against. Now, you can affect the quarterback, but it's hard to get sacks against because it's built to get the ball out quick. So it's catch and throw, catch and throw, catch and throw. So, we're going to have to make sure that we affect the quarterback in some different ways. We've got to get our hands up. We've got to make them throw through windows that are tight, not doorways. And so that's key. And then we'll have to be tight in coverage and tackle well in space because they create a space game.
Anything else for Coach?
Talking about what he was saying, his development, he was in late in that game.
Right.
Let's talk about his development.
He's very talented. He is coming along nicely. I mean, he was very limited in the spring, so we're talking about body work in fall camp, which is, you got a couple of weeks and then you get ready for games. So, but he has really embraced it. He's growing. He can have a bright future if he keeps doing what he's doing.
Coach, how would you evaluate the performance of Keandre Smith on Saturday?
Well, not how I would, how I have, extensively, and not being corrective, it's just, you know, he is growing in terms of the position. It's a little bit different than what they were asked to do last year. That particular position has some moving parts in it. So, I mean, you know, you're the adjuster in a lot of formations and your gap changes. And so he's grown into that. He's starting to understand it. I think what showed up in that game the other night was his speed. You know, he's a very good player in space. He can run in space. He can change direction in space. Former safety, not a linebacker. And that showed up. You know, he'll be the first to tell you he's still growing in the downhill box plays that are in the phone booth, but that's not what he was used to.
Thank you very much, Coach Steele.
Thanks,
Thank you.
appreciate it.